Hello and a very warm welcome to you all. I'm Vikas Nangia with another episode of CyberWatch. Ladies and gentlemen, I continue to be in Silicon Valley in our makeshift studio arrangement. Today we'll be talking to two very special guests. While I was here at RSA conference, I mingled and interacted with many individuals, technocrats, entrepreneurs, and subject matter experts. And there were various areas where the focus was during the conference. Today on the program, we'll talk about need for more investments in cybersecurity. We have with us Pratik Mehta. Pratik is a managing director in investment banking at Bank of America Securities, focused on cybersecurity. He specializes in helping companies with M&A, capital raising, and strategic advisory. My second guest on the program is familiar face on our network, Lalit Ahluwalia, the founder and CEO of DigitalXForce and iTrustXForce. Lalit and Pratik, thank you so very much for joining us on another episode of CyberWatch. Let me open up the conversation by getting your take on our topic, more investments in the cybersecurity.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. Great honor to be here. Thank you for Nozomi Networks for letting us use this studio, and of course we've met several times, Lalit, so thank you for having me as well.
Absolutely.
Nice to do a program with you.
Thank you.
Having said that, it's been a very interesting week at RSA. A lot of companies coming to the forefront, a lot of companies showing off new technology. I will say one of the biggest themes in cybersecurity that is present now and has been present for the last 5 or even 10 years is, look, the attack surface is constantly expanding. The bad guys are getting better. They're getting better at doing things faster. So the need for cybersecurity is only increasing. To that, you add the fact that the government is more and more focused on companies being compliant, companies being secure, and securing the critical infrastructure. That creates a massive opportunity for cybersecurity. And I don't see in any way the investment in cybersecurity going down. I only see up and to the right as you think about it. Threats are getting worse, actors are getting better, nation states are getting involved. So we need to be secure on all fronts. And I feel there is a massive momentum, as we saw at the RSA conference, to do that in the next few years.
Yeah. Lalit, what's your take on the topic? And what was your experience like interacting with folks at the RSA conference?
I think Pratik summarized really well. Number one, the new trends, not just the cyber threats. I will just only compliment it saying, we always kind of like in the cybersecurity to go like look from the threat angle. I look from the digitization angle.
Right.
We took the car example. If I really want to go 100 miles per hour, I want to make sure my brakes support 100 miles per hour. What if I want to go speed of 200? I'll have the more trust in those braking mechanisms.
Correct.
And other security measures. So it's not just about like the cyber threat. Of course, the bad actors getting like more sophisticated, better tools, better technologies, and expanded threat landscape, like how we're consuming. But even the digital business and the digitization expanding, for your business growth, you have to make sure you go as fast. In order to go as fast, you also need that much trust in the security measures so you don't falter. So combine them together, like business defense and business growth, combined together, we saw examples of like how the cybersecurity has to keep up at pace. And you cannot keep up with that pace without innovation, without new technologies, new methods, and that's what we experienced at the RSA too. All facets of cybersecurity, and of course, this is like a place, it's a gathering of all kind of schools of thought from different facets, from learners to people who want to share experiences, from investors to people who are looking to really kind of like new innovations.
Right.
We saw all that today.
Pratik, you are a seasoned investment banker when it comes to cybersecurity. What's been your major focus on?
Look, I mean, we focus generally as a firm, as a practice, we focus on doing M&A, IPOs, capital raising. Those are 3 main aspects. We've seen the trend go back and forth, right? If you think about 2021, where we were, tons of IPOs across the board. 2020, 2021, we saw a lot of IPOs. Since then, with the macro environment changing, interest rates increasing, we've seen a slowdown in IPOs. Actually, no software IPOs, no cybersecurity IPOs in almost 2.5+ years. But on the flip side of that, what we are seeing is a trend towards consolidation. We're seeing large companies acquire smaller companies. We're seeing large companies thinking about merging with other companies, maybe some of the competitors. So we're seeing a lot of activity in the sector, and I think a lot of companies are sharpening their pencils on sectors they want to expand in, TAMs they want to buy into. Also, maybe they just want to double down on certain sectors they're in already. So you're seeing a lot of activity, a lot of conversation, and I think that's the general trend. I think Lalit summarized it well, and I'll add one more point to what he said earlier. Digital transformation is a massive tailwind for security.
Right.
Think about anything that we do in the world today. There's no more paper, pencil. Everything is digitized. The attacker has access to everything you've digitized.
Right.
Right. But the CISO's problem today is, I have too many tools. I have 70, 80, 90 tools. How do I make everything work together? So bringing things together sometimes is best of breed, sometimes as a platform. It really depends on the practitioner, but we're seeing a lot of activity in general.
So does the consolidation solidifies the situation?
That's a tough question to answer. Generally, I think there's two schools of thought. One thought, as some of the larger companies have said in their earnings, having a platform, having as a user a one throat to choke kind of approach works, because you need to integrate a lot of different technologies. The flip side of that is, do I want to go with best of breed? I want the shiniest object with the best security because I have a new threat vector that no one's found, and I want to be able to secure my organization against that. Because this is a little bit of a cliche, but the hacker has to be right only once. The defender has to be right every single time.
True.
So it generally comes back to the practitioner and what their approach is, and we've seen we've seen both. We've seen folks who say I like the consolidation thesis, and other folks who say I want the best of breed because I have exposure in certain areas that I really want to play into and secure my organization against.
Yeah, Lalit, what's your take on it?
No, I think there's no denying, like it or not, we have made security overly complex. There's no other way to say it. I mean, this is what you call a shiny object syndrome. That's another way I can put that. Everybody gets gravitated towards the shiny objects, this. 23 years back when I started Journey, in some one domain, we used to have 2 or 3 dimensions, that's it.
Right.
Now there are 25 dimensions of that. I'm sorry, if I'm going to buy a car, I don't want to install the brakes after. I want the brakes installed in there.
Right.
I want the seat belt, the airbags, the sensors coming packaged in there. I'm not in a business of, I bought a car, let me now upgrade with all those things. That's the kind of way we've been thinking. While the investments have really elevated, yes, we need more innovation. What also that did was, it broke down silos, too many, too far. And those silos now, everybody's trying to take one piece and let me make it best. There's no way, when I look at security, CISOs and others, number one, be able to understand. Number two, be able to apply all that.
Right.
Then how do you really solve that problem? Solve the problem is, again, I will also go one degree further. It's not about a technology consolidation as much as about solution consolidation.
Right.
You cannot look from the big vendor, we have seen that era, 2000 to 2010. What the other large vendors of today, like Palo Alto's and CrowdStrike and others trying to do, IBM, CA, and Oracle did that and failed miserably.
Right, right.
If you want to make the same mistake again, be your own guest. It's going to bound to happen. You are focused on a technology. It has to be packaged into solutions. Someone who's really bringing, applying to a healthcare, applying to financial services, what are the use cases, how different elements come together, apply the solution. Don't tell me this one platform does it all. Whether best of the breed technology or whether it's one platform, but they has to be applied secure by design. People call it zero trust, or those technology lingos.
Right.
But that's a must. It's not even a nice to have anymore. It's a must.
Yeah. Great insight. So we're going to take a quick short break over here. On the other side of the break, when we resume our conversation with Pratik and Lalit, we'll talk about the investment trends in the cyberspace. Viewers, you stay tuned. Lalit and Pratik, you be with us. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. You're watching CyberWatch. I'm Vikas Nangia. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today on the program is Pratik Mehta. My second guest on the program is Lalit Ahluwalia. Gentlemen, once again, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise. Are we investing enough in cybersecurity space? And what are some of the emerging trends in the cyberspace?
Sure. I think we are investing enough, but there's always more to do. right? What I love about the space and the reason that I spend all of my time in cyber is because I feel it is a continuously expanding space. It touches so many different aspects of an enterprise. It's not just security. It touches risk and compliance. It touches fraud. It touches data management.
Sure.
It touches so many different aspects. So it's a continuously evolving space, I want to say, right? To your point of investment, I think there's a couple things. One, over the last, I want to say 10 years, at least let's start with the VC world, right? In the VC world, you initially had VCs that invested across the space, what we used to call enterprise software, everything, right? Across infrastructure, which included something in DevOps, which is tools for developers, invest in security. What has emerged from there as the trend has emerged, as the space has emerged, now you have security-focused VCs that only invest in cybersecurity companies. Specifically, a lot of VCs in Israel, right? They spend a lot of time there. There's a lot of startups coming out of there. So there's a significant amount of investment in small seed stage, Series A, B companies that come up with a new idea. That idea could become a massive idea. Think about some of the large public companies we have today, or some of those ideas get acquired by some of these larger companies.
Right.
These ideas are generally new segments of security as we think about it. So, to summarize, I think the investment trends are all moving in the positive direction. I think security in itself is expanding as it touches so many different aspects. And personally, even though I just spend time in security, I spend so much more time with my colleagues who touch different spaces that are all adjacent to security, because security is now becoming so mission critical to every organization. It's starting to touch all of us. Think about a simple interaction that you have, email, right? How many times do you use email, Slack, you name it? What are your interaction tools, right? Those communications need to be secure. It's an adjacency to communication.
Right.
Anything you put in a file somewhere, that needs to be secure. Any personal information that you have. How does the enterprise know that is personal information? Bring in security, right? Some auditor is going to come in and say, are you compliant? So I just feel there's so much to do in security that the trend, as I said earlier in the first segment, is up and to the right. And we remain super excited about this segment getting bigger and having a bigger TAM.
Lalit.
I think as we're going to keep evolving the digital world, you will need more cyber anyhow.
Right.
As simple. Look at the physical world, how we evolved. From the days when we used to live in the jungles, to move to the civilized societies, to then they started building cities, then started building transportation infrastructure, then started building. See, every layer when you started building, what happened? You need more physical security around it. It's never stopped, and it's not stopping, right?
Right.
What are we doing in the digital ecosystems? The same thing. The era of internet, to then era of really bringing the different technologies, the e-commerce and everything. Is that trend stopping? No. Soon you're going to start having self-driving cars on the street, space tourism, remote healthcare, anything you're trying to digitizing, smart cities, smart homes. What are you trying to do? You're trying to really expose the digital exposure. And you're bringing the new elements.
Right.
As the new elements are getting introduced, you also need the solutions to make sure they're secure the same way.
Right.
Which means you got to keep evolving, both from the new, also from the existing that has to fit the new systems. So complement all that together, this trend and the investments that are needed to really keep up with the pace is important. I also want to hit on an important part you asked, are we investing enough?
Right.
A question I ask is, how do you know your investments are working enough?
True.
That's the question.
Yeah.
I will tell you, we are trying to solve for our clients. You put an X million, let's say, prove me that, okay, that the investment that you put were working. Don't ask me whether should I add more or not. First tell me the ROI, the return on investment that you're really making out of this one. Most people and organizations don't even have an answer for that.
So to build up on what Lalit said, Pratik, how do you gauge it? Is there any metrics that you know that are the investments in the right direction, and are they are they good, fruitful investments?
Yeah. First of all, I love your analogies. I'm going to use more of those.
And that's what our viewers love about him. The relevant case studies and the references that he brings are very relatable. Easy to understand.
I think before I answer your question, I think what's happened, and to your point earlier, what's happened in cybersecurity, we made it overly complex. There's an acronym soup for everything.
Right.
So I feel using analogies, making it relatable is super important. Now back to your question on the ROI. That's a tough question. There are many metrics that practitioners use in security, right? You have something, I'm going to get a little nerdy here, but mean time to response, mean time to detect, MTTD, MTTR, things like that, right? Basically, it's saying if there's a threat in your environment, how long does it take to detect? How long does it take to respond? And then how many threats did you find? How many threats did you solve? But the challenge with all of these metrics is they're constantly evolving, right? Because as I said earlier, you just need to be wrong once.
Yeah.
You don't need to be wrong every time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I think it's tough to measure ROI. And I think there is a need for a layer that sits on top of a security stack to say what's working, what's not, do you really need this, do you really not? Because right now, the spending is a little rampant. And fairly so, like just as we started the conversation, right? Because attackers are getting smarter, you need to be one step in front of them. So am I investing enough is always a question every CISO is asking. And if you look at the historical trends, CISO budgets have only gone up, right? We've only spent more. So tough to measure.
In your observation, whenever you interact with the CISOs, what are they looking from, expecting from the investment bankers?
Yeah.
And also vice versa, what are you folks expecting out of CISOs?
Yeah. So I'll tell you one thing. The one thing CISOs are not expecting from investment bankers to make buying decisions, because that will not be a good idea. They know the technology better than we do. I think the best interactions that we have with generally CISOs across the board, and not just the banker relationship, with any CISO, right? I think you want to understand their view of the world. What is it that the problems that they face? And in doing so, you're then able to deduce and say, okay, so let's think about it. Your biggest problem right now is visibility, right? I heard in one of the previous episodes, someone say, I cannot protect what I cannot see, right? Visibility of assets, visibility of databases that are just lying in your AWS, visibility of IoT assets, right? How do you find that? And then you cannot protect something that's been, that someone 5 years ago built something and left an open database somewhere. So visibility is number one, right? I think then you take the second step and say, okay, great, I have visibility of my own assets, but then what about the assets that I'm connected to? Because as you can imagine, let's take the physical example, what Lalit says, right? Building a plane, you require thousands of vendors. Every organization is connected to thousands of vendors, right? If I'm organization A and I have organization 3A as my vendor, if 3A gets breached, there's a high chance I get breached, right? So third-party risk management, right? Understanding the risk not just of yourself, but the extended risk is becoming absolutely critical, because we've built all the moats, we've built all the firewalls, we've built every single thing we can think about. But if someone on the outside is going to sneak, and very okay to sneak through your door, or even not even sneak through, pass through your door, and they're infected, you are going to get infected, right? So I feel there is a, there is a notion, how, again, back to your question about how we interact, I think understanding their problems and then sort of finding companies to either invest in or do business with is always useful. And what they expect from us, I think a lot of CISOs just want to know from us, like, what's going on in the market, right?
Right.
What's happening with these companies is some of the questions you ask. Do you think from an investment perspective, are people thinking about building a platform? Are they thinking about building single companies?
Right.
So it's a very symbiotic relationship, and a lot of it relies on communication, interaction, understanding what each of us is facing, and it's a wonderful thing for me specifically to engage and interact with CISOs because I get to learn a lot.
Yeah, and we're going to take a quick short break over here. On the other side of the break, when we resume back, we will first take a look at the CyberWatch news flash and resume back to our topic, our conversation, and get Lalit's reaction on what CISOs are expecting out of investment bankers and what investment bankers on the other side are looking for the role of CISO over here. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. You're watching CyberWatch. Ladies and gentlemen, today with our guests Lalit Ahluwalia and Pratik Mehta, we are discussing on the topic, need for more investments in cybersecurity. Before we resume back to our conversation, first, let's take a quick look at the CyberWatch news flash. Accenture hit by data breach, 30,000 plus employee records allegedly up for sale. Cybercriminals have reportedly listed a data set for sale on a notorious hacker forum, claiming it contains private information of over 30,000 current and former employees of Accenture, a leading multinational IT services and consulting company. The breach, allegedly occurring in June, has exposed sensitive data including emails, names, and broadcast dates, potentially compromising the privacy and security of thousands of individuals. The leaked information may be linked to an internal tool called Media Exchange, used for advanced video calling within the company. This incident, if confirmed, would mark the second major security breach for Accenture in recent years, following a 2021 attack by the Lockbit ransomware gang. Accenture, a global leader in the managed security services with partnership with tech giants like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, has yet to respond to the allegations. The company's prominent position in the IT services industry, particularly in sectors such as energy, health, aerospace, and defense, makes this potential breach especially significant. All right, Lalit and Pratik, thank you so very much for joining us in our third and the last segment of our conversation. And Pratik, you gave a great point of view when we were talking about what CISOs are expecting out of investment bankers. The same question to you, Lalit, and opinion from both sides. CISOs expecting from investment bankers and what investment bankers are looking vice versa.
I think one of the previous episodes, if you remember, Vikas, we compared CISOs of today to the Senapatis of all this.
Correct. Yes, I remember. And we had CISOs on the program.
Right, exactly. Right. What was the role of a Senapati, right? It's not just about thinking about how am I going to fight the war.
Correct.
But anticipate, strategize. When the people are coming on the land, they have to think about what weapons I'm going to be using to fight the land war.
Right.
When people are coming to the sea, they got think of that.
Right.
To the air, they're attacking us, you're preparing. That's the reason why in the modern world, you have an army, you have an air force, you got navy, right? Now, evolution of that.
Right.
The same thing is what the CISOs are looking for. They're looking from all different angles, all different vectors. The complexity, of course, is not going away.
Right.
And now we're also facing another era where the SEC, which is the governing bodies, trying to actually penalize for people, CISOs for not doing their job or falsifying. We have now instances where CISOs are finding they could be behind the bars.
Right.
For doing the job. So which is now only elevated the urgency of that.
Pratik, since you also have an expertise in the area of capital raising, what are the challenges that you see in that domain, when it comes to cybersecurity?
Yeah. So look, a lot of pros in raising money in cybersecurity. As we've talked about, it's a big market, big TAM.
Right.
There's a lot to do, a lot of problems to fix. I feel companies were getting fairly aggressively funded in the 2021 times when money was free, right? You had 0% interest rates. But as the macro landscape has changed, you're seeing a divergence of investments, a lot of funding going to earlier stage companies building new technologies. It's small checks. It could be medium to small checks where investors are putting in money and saying, hey, I'm going to see how this company does. The other end of the barbell is big checks to larger companies that have already been successful, that are probably 2-3 years or less away from an IPO or an exit or whatever the case may be. So I think the challenge is companies that are sort of in the middle, is where they've matured to a certain stage, but the growth has sort of leveled off and they're starting to become a mature company, but they're not close to being an IPO level company, right? So that's where funding has dried up. But then again, look, there are always exceptions to the rule. If you're an exceptional company with an exceptional product solving a challenge that no one else is, and you have the right strategic direction, whether it's through buying other companies or innovating yourself, organic, inorganic growth, you can easily get there. There's nothing to say you cannot, but the environment is more risk off than it was a couple of years ago.
Pratik, I also want to get some information a bit about your background, your interest in the industry.
Sure.
This could have been my opening question as well.
Yeah.
The reason I asked you towards the end is so that the people could connect with you, resonate, and many who would be listening to our conversation by now, you must have become the role model for them. So many individuals are trying to make a place for themselves in the area of cybersecurity, keeping investment banking at the forefront.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to them, and also a bit about your journey?
Sure. So look, I'm an engineer. I started off as an engineer. I worked for 4 years, building some technologies as we think about it. And then I moved into investment banking. I've been doing investment banking for 11 years now, and it's been a fantastic journey. I have spent all of my career covering software companies. And I want to say in the last 5 to 6 years, really focused on cybersecurity. And the big reason for that being, I think 5 or 6 years ago is when you really saw cybersecurity come on its own, right?
Yeah.
It was separate, software is separate, but cybersecurity became an entire universe by itself.
Right.
Right now, if you think about it, there's close to 3,000 or 4,000 cybersecurity companies, right? So it became an exciting journey for me. And as I spent more time in the sector, I spent more time with companies, entrepreneurs, CEOs, folks like Lalit, CISOs that I know, I just got more and more excited about the space.
Right.
Because again, as I indicated earlier, it's constantly expanding. There's constant innovation. I love to stay at the forefront of things. So my journey has been, I'm lucky to have found cybersecurity, and I'm glad that I'm spending a lot of time, and there's a reason I'm here, right? Spending time with you.
Lalit and Pratik, thank you so very much for joining us on this episode of CyberWatch. Viewers, this brings us to the end of our tonight's episode. Until next time, this is Vikas Nangia signing off. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.